no gijigad. Anin, nindawe maganatak. Bonjour, that's very good. Thank you. That was the return greeting. In case you were wondering, we do call Wishinin, Gagwaji, Minapamadazi. Help us out to make that good life. That's what I just said. Thank you very much for the honor of being here with you. I was really inspired to, when I come in. I'm not really much on going to D.C., although having the great black father there, we like that very much. The great white father didn't do so good for us for a while there, but I just want to welcome you to this green economy idea. I gotta say, we're thinking we had about 30,000 years of it on the continent. We did pretty darn good. We got that 8,000 varieties of corn, got that passive solar, developed most of the world's pharmaceuticals, the natural kind before they turned it into pills. Had a lot of other awesome stuff going here, Oma A King. Last 200 years has been a little rough. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but let's get a little real. You know, extinction of more species in the past 150 years and since the Ice Age. More peoples, extinct. You know, combusted ourselves kind of to the edge of oblivion from what I can see. I had to break it to my teenager who just started driving that I consumed half of the world's oil resources before the kid could even hit the road. Be in counseling for probably the next 5 years. But, you know, from our perspective, you know, and we got really addicted. We are the largest economy in the world that is this fossil fuel economy, and the problem is that we are addicted. We're addicted to energy, and the problem with being an addict is you do a lot of bad stuff. And you hang out with dealers. I mean, that's it, you know. And you end up where we are. And you end up with an economy that we have that is not actually sustainable. I don't know if anyone has picked that up. You cannot build a society based on conquest. I don't want to be the one to break the news to y'all, but it turns out there's only so many places you could conquer. There's only so many countries you can invade. At a certain point, you got to quit consuming a third of the world's resources and live within our means. That's how you get justice. That's how that works. That's the only way. Because you can't talk about it and then still go take other people's stuff. Right? It doesn't work. You got to build some society which is based on justice. Our Native communities are really very interested in this movement, and we're so honored. We have a lot of Native people came out to this, and we're real honored to be here as a part of it. We did not like the last energy economy. You know, I'm not going to give you a whole lesson, but I'll just tell you this. 2/3 of the uranium, nuclear power plants on Indian territories. 1/3 of all Western low-sulfur coal, biggest dam projects in the continent, flooded our communities out. Got all this oil, you know, up offshore and in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. That's all on indigenous territories. And all the proposals for nuclear waste in Native communities. This last energy economy for this set of addicts is not good. It did not do well in our communities. And then they had the transition. You know, I feel like a really, really bad flashback when I go down to New Mexico, because a lot of you were around. You know, we fought nuclear power the last time. You know, I've been at most nuclear power plants of this country at a demonstration. You know, late 70s and early 80s. And you remember that they wanted 1,000 nuclear power plants in this country by the year 2000. They don't got them. That's because of us. It's because of our movement. That's because our movement did that. You know, joining together. You know, all these people. But I go down there to New Mexico, and the town Grants, New Mexico, used to be the uranium capital of the world. Now it's got to be the prison capital of the world. They replaced the uranium mines with 3 prisons. Now, is that like a strategy for an economy or what? You know, that is not what we want to see. And we do not want to see a retooling of the nuclear industry or the repackaging of the nuclear industry as a way to address climate change. If that is the answer, what was the question? That's what I want to know, you know. And we do not want to see anything that is called clean coal because you cannot wash it enough. There is no way. And there is no way that you can sequester anything forever. The only way you sequester carbon forever is leave it where it is. which is in the earth. That's where it needs to be. Not in the air, it needs to be in the earth. And we got to stay clear on that. We cannot fracture our movement on these issues. It's very, very, very important because we know the consequences of that. We know where it has been. But we are hanging in there, and we are tough on these issues. One of my favorite places, I got to go see these guys. Kivalina, this little village up in Alaska, sued 14 oil companies because they're falling in the ocean. You know, climate change is very devastating for our communities. We are the most impacted because we live in the Arctic and we live in the Pacific. We are the people who live there, and the rest of us are going to get hit by it. But you just go figure. You know, you look at these, they call them the death maps that came out on climate change, and they are our urban areas. Yeah? You know, people who cannot adapt, and they are the third of the people who live in the Great Plains who live in trailers and don't have phones, a good portion of them. They don't even have a prayer of living through dramatic weather. You know, they don't even have a prayer. So we are concerned and we are interested in this future. Our people have a prophecy from a really long time ago. That's, I guess, where they start, get prophecies. Anyway, they came to our people a long time ago, and they talked about these fires. And they referred to our times as fires, and they talked about, you know, how we'd be doing pretty good, and then they talked about how we botch things up ourselves. I have to say this because no society has a monopoly on botching things up. Every society, because we're human, everybody botches things up. The question is if you have the humility and the commitment to fix it. That's what that is. Don't wallow, you know, in the botch things up guilt. It's useless. Move on. You know. And then they talked about some people would come and some would be good and some would be bad, and that was true. You know, don't be revisionists. Pretend that the founding fathers were all cool dudes. They weren't. You know, had to get that land someplace, had to kill a lot of people to get it. You know. And then they talked about how, you know, different things that happened to our people. Their people would disappear. We didn't have a word for smallpox. Weapons of mass destruction, we're familiar. And our things would disappear, and we didn't have a word for the Smithsonian, but that's what it was, when they haul off your whole village. Take it there. But then they talked about our people would kind of be asleep, and then they said our people would go and start finding our things and wake up and remember who we were. They call that the people of the Ashki Anishinaabe, people of the seventh fire. And then they said that those people would look ahead, and they would have two paths ahead of them. They call that the time of the seventh fire, and they say that that time is now. They say our Anishinaabe people would have two mikana, two choices in a road. Two mikana. One mikana, they said, was well-worn and it was scorched. And they said the other mikana, or the other road, was not well-worn and it was green. And it would be our choice upon which path to embark. And that's what those prophets said to us probably about 2,000 years ago. So that's where we are now in our community. Our Anishinaabe community, I live and work on my own reservation in northern Minnesota, the White Earth Reservation. But I actually think that that is where we are as a country.